off-road events have become increasingly popular with motorsport enthusiasts, and a feature of this year's Toyota 1000 was the huge crowds that gathered along the route. Despite the early beginning to proceedings, there was a huge turnout of spectators at the start, with the Mitsubishi Pajero of Neil Woolrich and Kenny Scholthammer the first car to be flagged away. Next on the road were Pete Haasbroek and Christo Bosch in the Toyota Land Cruiser, with the Freiburg Motor Club pair among the danger men in the production vehicle field. Haasbroek and Bosch were followed by another crew falling into the danger men bracket in Cliff Wichelt and Johan Smalberger in another Toyota Land Cruiser. The factory Castrol Toyota Land Cruiser in the hands of reigning champions Arpi Reinecker and Robin Houghton was next away, with the pair looking for their second win of the season. Out on the route, Neil Woolrich and Kenny Scholthammer had run into early problems. The pair were having trouble deciphering route markings and were meandering around the Botswana bush. It was an exercise that was costing them time, with the pair dropping down the pecking order.
Something there. Keep lift, yeah. Down, yeah.
Woolrich and Scholthammer weren't the only ones with early hassles. The Haasbroek Bosch Toyota Land Cruiser had picked up a puncture, and that was also dropping them down the race order. It was a dramatic start to the Toyota 1000 Desert Race, and while Woolrich and Scholthammer battled to find their bearings, the Castrol Toyota crew of Arpi Reinecker and Robin Houghton took full advantage of the situation. The pair moved into the lead when they caught and overtook the Toyota Land Cruiser of Cliff Wichelt and Johan Smalberger moments before reaching the river crossing. Wichelt and Smalberger weren't taking any risks and had got off to a steady start. Behind the two Toyota Land Cruisers, the Woolrich-Scholthammer combination had got themselves back on track, but had dropped to third on the road in the production vehicle category. They had a little work to do, but couldn't have been unduly worried about the turn of events. It was still early days on one of the toughest off-road races anywhere in the world, and there was ample time to repair the early damage. Running at the front of the special vehicles field were the father and son combination of Franz Czepek Sr. and Jr. in the Epson V-Motors Chenoweth. It was a situation not unknown to the Czepeks, and behind them, rivals Greg Harvey and Boy Stone in the Castrol Jimco were on the tail of Hein Hrobler and Charles Volmerans in the Class D leading Nissan. After a string of non-finishes, Harvey and Stone decided a change was as good as a holiday, and were for the first time running the Jimco with a manual gearbox instead of an automatic unit.
And then cross the river somewhere. Upright by the look of it.
Working their way through the field were veterans Hannes Hrobler and Richard Leek in their near-standard BP Nissan Hardbody, running in Class T. Behind Hrobler and Leek, traction out of the river crossing was proving to be more of a problem for Class B frontrunner Giel Nel in a single-seater Sandmaster. There were similar problems for one or two other competitors, but it was not until Noel and Robin Quinn arrived on the scene in their Mitsubishi Pajero that someone encountered a lone rock in the crossing that was just waiting for a victim. The rock did a good job of halting progress where the Pajero was concerned. The resultant backlog of cars at the crossing provided for some hectic entertainment for crews and spectators who sat back to watch the fun and games. Further along the route, spectators packed the surrounding areas for another interesting river crossing. For the Berthold family, drama was about to strike. Bodo Berthold and son Gary were going along well in the N&E Glass Raceco, but a few minutes down the road, their race was to come to an abrupt halt. As fate would have it, Bevan Berthold and Atang Makakaneni in the Speedstick Raceco were right behind them and broke down at exactly the same spot. For the record, it was not a happy family reunion. A combination of sand, water and mud drew droves of spectators to the first Molle Palole Bridge, with another change at the front of the production vehicle category. Back at the front of the field, but only just, were Neil Woolrich and Kenny Scholthammer in the works Mitsubishi Pajero. Right on the tail of the Pajero were Cliff Wichelt and Johan Smalberger in the Toyota Land Cruiser, with the pair going along without any fuss or bother. The first of the special vehicle entrants at the bridge was the Castrol Queen's Motor Spares Jimco of Greg Harvey and Boy Stone, with the manual gearbox working a treat for the pair. The Eastern Cape crew were looking strong and hoping to put behind them the string of non-finishers that plagued them last year and in the early part of this season. Behind the Jimco, there was huge support for Api Reiniker and Robin Houghton in the Castrol Toyota Land Cruiser, with the pair having dropped off the pace a little. The atmosphere was festive, and there was plenty for locals to cheer about, with special vehicle championship leaders Shamir Variawa and Bucks Carolyn going along well in the Cornbake Jimco. Behind them, Class D leaders Hein Krobler and Charles Volmerans were being chased by Hannes Krobler and Richard Leek. Both Nissans were running strongly, but there were problems for Class B frontrunner Marius Beaurain.
Just fuel starvation, and I can't seem to find the problem. We'll get it now.
While Beaurain was busy with matters mechanical, Mike Thompson and Brian Haviland arrived on the scene in a Mitsubishi Colt fitted with an automatic gearbox. The final section of the river crossing saw the pair bogged down, with the Land Rover of Paul and Anthony Schuen already stranded. The casualties were mounting, with Arthur von Swiel and Piera Antiga in the Class E Toyota Hilux forced into a detour to get through the crossing. In a departure from previous years, the quads started before the motorcycles, and the crossing was a little crowded when leader there, Brendan Badenhorst, put in an appearance and sailed through mud, water and sand. Not far behind Badenhorst's CJ Yamaha were Parry Dakar Rally hero Vickers van Deventer on the Jojo Tanks Yamaha, and Brandon Martin, who was going well on the 5-star Motors entry. The first three quads negotiated the crossing without any problems, but that ended when Mark Breckel arrived on the scene on the Brasco Refrigeration Yamaha and found himself bogged down. It was great entertainment for the crowd, and Breckel needed some outside assistance to get going again. Breckel was mobile once more, but other quad riders were finding the thick mud more than a handful. And among those who also needed a little assistance from willing helpers was Jacques Struwik, who was among the pre-race favourites in the quad category. Fun and games at the Malopolole Bridge, but no joy for the Chepex, who were loading the Epson V Motors Chenoweth on its trailer.
Short into the race, we eventually took the lead in the special vehicles category. Only to find out that the power steering gave in. So when we stopped, we got to a reasonable spot. We had a look, and sand had got into the power steering reservoir, and it'll cause so much damage if we have to carry on. We could possibly finish the race without power steering, but we got a power steering pump running straight off the transmission, and that would cause endless problems, and it would be very expensive, and so we thought we'd rather just throw in the towel.
Setting the early pace in the motorcycle category was talented Free State rider Graham McLaughlin on the factory Honda. There was a little wake-up call for McLaughlin, with the bikers building up a head of steam on the quicker sections of the course. Chasing him was Darrell Curtis on the AGA LG Castrol KTM, with team manager Ralph Pitchford monitoring his progress. Going well and leading the 250 class was Jade Goodseat on a factory Honda, with highly experienced teammate Errol Dalton, who has plenty of experience, also up with the front runners in the open category. Running second in the 250 class was Rian van Niekerk on another of the AGA LG Castrol KTM entries, with the faster bikers now in among the slower quad racers. Also going well was veteran Jeremy Davies on another AGA LG Castrol KTM entry, who sailed past quad rider Jacques Struwik, who had stopped for a breather. Behind Davies, Elmer Simons lying third in the 250 class, and he had a little ground to make up. 200 class leader Barry Creel was going well on the Adventure Sport KTM, with a bit of a dice going on between Brett Pawdy and Jason Krauser, who got it all wrong and dug something of a hole for himself. Some nifty footwork prevented Krauser from going down with the ship, and he was anxious to get on his way again. The crowd was enjoying every moment of his discomfort, but fortunately for him, the KTM was undamaged. With a little help from some willing bystanders, Krauser was soon on his way again, with the incident not costing him too much in terms of lost time. The incident also provided him with an interesting tale to tell at the overnight halt, and he was a hit with the local enthusiasts. Back with the leaders in the production vehicle category, and Neil Woolrich and Kenny Schulthammer were flying along in the Mitsubishi Pajero. After their shaky start to proceedings earlier in the day, the two former bike stars were back in the groove. Woolrich and Schulthammer were slowly starting to edge away from the rest of the field in the state-of-the-art Pajero, which is an awesome package. Running at the front of the special vehicle category, Greg Harvey and Boy Stone in the Queen Motorspares Castrol Jimco, with rally star Enzo Kuhn and Francois Jourdain moving into contention in Class D in the factory Mitsubishi Colt. Keil Nell was turning in a sterling drive to lead Class B in the single-seater Sandmaster, with the service point an impressive sight. Creeping almost unnoticed up the special vehicle leaderboard were Mark Corbett and Juan Moore in the Century City Jimco, with the two youngsters suddenly emerging as a threat. And also putting in an appearance at the service point were the highly experienced former off-road champions Hannes Hrobler and Richard Leake in the Nissan. The pair looking to pick up more Class T points in the standard vehicle before a new state-of-the-art Nissan puts in an appearance.
We had a flat wheel, we clipped a tree stump on the side of the road, and we lost about 7 minutes, but further no problems, and we're going strong. We're just keeping the pace there.
Making a dramatic entry into the service point were Nas LaRue and Henny Tastega, who rolled the second of the factory Mitsubishi Colts. With the Colt landing back on its wheels, progress was only momentarily halted.
One new car.
Damage to the car was limited to some bent bodywork and a little damaged pride from the driver.
I saw the service van too late, and I was looking and I turned in and there was a little ditch there and I wasn't looking where I was going, so yeah, my mistake.
More mud, sweat and gears from the Toyota 1000 Desert Race coming up.